What happens when a disgraced prince steps into the spotlight expecting respect and instead gets grilled like never before? What unfolds when a sharp-tongued journalist refuses to let go and a royal temper reaches its breaking point? You think you've seen awkward interviews before? You haven't seen anything until you've watched Prince Harry and Kevin O'Sullivan go head-to-head with accusations, insults, and a studio walkout that left viewers stunned. The set of the Kevin O'Sullivan show glowed under the studio lights as the audience settled in. The atmosphere was calm, almost deceptively so, but everyone watching knew this was no ordinary guest. Prince Harry entered the studio in a crisp navy suit, his posture stiff, but his expression carefully neutral. The audience clapped politely, though not as enthusiastically as he might have been used to. He nodded curtly at Kevin, who greeted him with a thin smile. "Your Royal Highness," Kevin began, leaning back in his chair, voice smooth, but with that trademark bite lurking underneath. "Welcome to the show. Thank you for joining us." Harry adjusted his cufflinks, forced a smile. "Pleasure to be here, Kevin. Thanks for having me." Kevin didn't miss a beat. "I trust you are ready for a real conversation, not just the usual royal fluff." Harry arched an eyebrow. "I think I can handle it." For the first 5 minutes, the conversation stayed tame. Kevin asked about Harry's current projects, his advocacy for mental health, his new documentaries. Harry gave polished answers, leaning on familiar talking points, using my platform to help people, telling my truth, shedding light on hidden struggles. But then Kevin leaned forward, fingers steepled. The smile faded. "Let's talk about privacy," Kevin said. "You've said repeatedly that you and Meghan left the royal family to escape media intrusion. Yet here you are on television again, selling your story. Why should anyone believe you genuinely want privacy when you keep showing up in front of cameras?" Harry's lips tightened into a faint sneer. "There's a difference between wanting privacy and telling your story on your own terms. I control the narrative now, not the tabloids." Kevin tilted his head. "Convenient, isn't it? Privacy when it suits you, cameras when it pays. Do you not see how hypocritical that looks?" Harry chuckled darkly. "I think the hypocrisy is on your side, Kevin. You media types spend your lives intruding and then act shocked when we fight back." The audience murmured, sensing the tension building. Kevin didn't flinch. "I suppose fighting back also includes throwing your family under the bus." Kevin countered. "Let's talk about that. You've accused them of racism, neglect, and cruelty on international television. Do you ever stop to wonder how your father and brother feel about having their reputations smeared while you sit here playing the victim?" Harry's jaw flexed. He leaned forward, eyes narrowing. "I don't owe you or anyone else an explanation for protecting my wife and kids from toxicity. If my family didn't want to be called out, maybe they shouldn't have treated us like dirt." Kevin raised his eyebrows, unimpressed. So the royal family should just roll over and let you rewrite history." Harry barked out a sharp laugh. "History was written wrong to begin with. I'm just setting the record straight." Kevin scribbled something on his notepad, then looked up again. "Speaking of setting things straight, how do you reconcile criticizing the monarchy while still cashing in on the title of Duke of Sussex? You've kept the title, the privileges, the connections, but none of the responsibility. Seems a bit convenient, doesn't it?" Harry's response came out like a hiss. "I've earned everything I have, and it's not for you to decide how I live my life." Kevin smirked. "Oh, believe me, the public has decided already, and it's not flattering." The air grew thicker with every exchange. Kevin crossed his arms. "Let's shift to Meghan. Many would say her behavior over the years has been well erratic. Ditching staff, alienating your family, lawsuits left and right. At what point do you admit that maybe she's been part of the problem?" Harry's entire demeanor hardened, his voice dropped, sharp and cold. "Leave my wife out of this," he said through clenched teeth. "You don't know her. You don't know anything about us." Kevin held up his hands mockingly. Touchy. It's a fair question, isn't it? Everyone's asking it." Harry scoffed loudly, running a hand through his hair in frustration. "Everyone? You mean people like you who make a living off gossip and lies? Pathetic?" Kevin leaned back, that familiar shark smile returning. "Pathetic? Well, At least I haven't betrayed everyone who loved and supported me for a Netflix check. The crowd gasped. Harry sat back in his chair, his lips pressed into a thin line, his nostrils flaring. Kevin uncapped his pen and tapped it against his notepad, as if daring Harry to speak again. The prince crossed his arms, smirking faintly, but seething underneath. Is this your idea of journalism, Kevin, or just you being a bitter old man, jealous of what I've built? Kevin's laugh was low and humorless. Oh, Harry, you haven't built anything. You've burned bridges and built a bonfire with the ashes. That's all you've done. The audience buzzed again. Harry's fists tightened in his lap, his knuckles white. But Kevin simply turned another page of his notes, his eyes gleaming. Let's move on, shall we? And so they did. The calm facade had cracked wide open, and everyone knew this was just the beginning. The audience could feel the tension now humming in the air like a live wire. Kevin O'Sullivan leaned forward over his desk, his expression now openly skeptical, even amused. Prince Harry sat stiffly across from him, arms crossed, his royal mask slipping more with every jab. Kevin tapped his pen on the desk, a subtle rhythm that seemed to irritate Harry further. Let's talk about your decision to leave the UK, Kevin began. You've called it an act of survival, but what about the people you left behind? Did they not matter? The Queen in her final years, still working at 96 while you fled to California. Your father stepping into the role of king without his son by his side. Your brother forced to carry twice the load because you abandoned him. Did you think of anyone but yourself? Harry's jaw tightened as he let out a humorless laugh. Do you think you know what happened? You have no idea. None. I did what I had to do to protect my family from a toxic environment that was killing us. And frankly, I don't care if that makes me unpopular. Kevin arched a brow. So the toxic environment is to blame for everything. Not your decisions, not your actions, just everyone else. Harry leaned forward, his tone sharp. You weren't there. You didn't hear the conversations, see the looks, read the headlines. Don't sit there in your little chair pretending you have the moral high ground. Kevin chuckled dryly. Well, Harry, I might not have been there, but millions watched you on Oprah, listened to your podcast, read your memoir. You've left no shortage of narratives. The question is, which version should we believe? Harry's nostrils flared. You're twisting everything I say like everyone else in your pathetic industry. Kevin pressed on unfazed. Speaking of which, Meghan, many royal staff described her behavior as, what was the word, difficult. Dozens of aides quit during her short tenure. Reports of shouting at staff, reducing them to tears. How do you explain that? Harry's eyes hardened instantly. His voice dropped sharp and cold. Those are lies, smears, fabrications by people desperate to protect the institution and tear her down. Kevin didn't even blink. So, everyone else is lying and only you two are telling the truth. Exactly. Harry shot back without hesitation. Kevin tilted his head, pen tapping faster now. That's convenient. Harry rolled his eyes and leaned back in his chair, clearly seething. You wouldn't understand loyalty if it slapped you in the face. Kevin smiled faintly. Oh, I understand loyalty just fine, Your Highness. But I also understand accountability. Something you seem allergic to. Harry laughed bitterly. Oh, give me a break. Accountability? Please. The monarchy has zero accountability. It's all just smoke and mirrors to keep people like you distracted while they ruin lives behind closed doors. Kevin leaned forward again, his voice growing firmer. You've accused the royal family of racism. You've implied your brother leaked stories. You've accused Cordes of cruelty, but you've never given specifics. No names, no evidence. We might. Harry slammed a fist on the arm of his chair, making the audience flinch. Because I'm not going to destroy people's lives just to satisfy vultures like you. Kevin simply smirked. Oh, you've destroyed plenty already. Harry pointed a finger at him, eyes blazing. You're crossing a line. Kevin folded his arms, his gaze calm but cutting. Funny, you crossed at the moment you turned your family into content. The audience gasped audibly at that one. Harry stared at him, visibly shaking, but didn't reply. Kevin leaned back and waited a beat before delivering his next blow. Let's address the elephant in the room, shall we? There are already whispers of trouble in paradise. Stories of, let's say, strain in your marriage. Is it true? Have you and Meghan separated? Harry's face froze. He stared at Kevin in disbelief, his mouth slightly open. Then his jaw clenched, and his voice came out low and dangerous. How dare you? How dare you bring that up? Kevin held his gaze, calm as ever. It's a fair question. You've made your relationship everyone's business. The public has a right to know if the fairy tale is over. Harry stood abruptly, his chair scraping loudly against the studio floor. You're disgusting. You've been disgusting this whole time. Kevin's smile widened just slightly. That temper of yours, Harry, that's the real you, isn't it? Harry pointed at him again, nearly spitting his words now. You know nothing about me. Nothing. You're just a bitter little man sitting there throwing stones. Kevin stayed seated, unbothered. Better to throw stones than to throw away everything and call it courage. The two men stared at each other, the studio silent, save for the sound of Harry's labored breathing. Kevin straightened a stack of papers on his desk. If you can't handle the heat, Harry, you're welcome to leave. Harry's chest rose and fell as he glared down at Kevin. You think you're a journalist? You're nothing but a bully hiding behind a microphone. Kevin smirked faintly. And you're just a prince hiding behind excuses. Harry ripped the mic off his lapel, the cord whipping as he threw it onto the floor. I'm done. This interview is over. He turned sharply toward the exit, his shoulders stiff, his face blazing with fury. Kevin watched him go, then turned to the camera with a cool expression. Well, ladies and gentlemen, Prince Harry's still running. The audience sat frozen as Harry stormed out of view. Kevin added with a faint shrug, We'll be back after the break. The cameras kept rolling even after the commercial break began. Behind the scenes, studio staff scrambled to calm the atmosphere. Prince Harry could be heard pacing just off set, still fuming, his voice low and clipped as he exchanged words with one of his aides. But Kevin O'Sullivan, he remained in his chair, perfectly composed, tapping his pen and glancing at the clock as though nothing unusual had happened. The audience whispered among themselves, glancing toward the exit and wondering if Harry was coming back or if they just witnessed the end of the interview entirely. And then the prince returned. The studio door swung open, and Harry stormed back into the spotlight, his face still red with anger. He marched back to his chair, adjusted it with a sharp yank, and sat down. The entire studio froze. Let's finish this, he snapped, glaring across the desk at Kevin. Kevin's eyebrow arched ever so slightly. Oh, decided not to run away after all? Harry sneered. I'm not running. I just won't let you spin your garbage unchecked. Kevin smirked faintly and leaned forward. Good. Then let's pick up where we left off, shall we? The tension was unbearable. Even the camera operators could be seen leaning forward in their booths. Kevin's tone sharpened now, dropping any hint of humor. You left the royal family claiming it was unbearable, that it was destroying your wife. And yet, you continued to use the royal connection whenever it suits you. Book deals, speaking tours, Netflix specials. Isn't that hypocrisy? Harry's jaw tightened. He leaned forward, his voice low and dangerous. You have no idea what we went through, and we never asked for the monarchy to be our prison. Kevin didn't flinch, but you certainly cashed in on it once you walked away. Harry let out a cold laugh. You people never stop, do you? Always looking for some gotcha moment. My family has been through hell, and all you care about is whether we're making money. Kevin interjected smoothly. No, what I care about is honesty, Harry. You want privacy, but you want to sell your story at the same time. You want respect, but you spend every chance you get at trashing your family. Do you even hear yourself? Harry stood suddenly, towering over Kevin now. I earn my right to speak. You just sit there taking cheap shots because you're too small to make a difference. Kevin remained seated, meeting Harry's glare without blinking. Better to take cheap shots than to cash in sheep sympathy. The audience gasped. Harry's fists clenched at his sides. You're pathetic. You think you're exposing me? You're just exposing yourself. Kevin's voice grew cooler still. You know, Harry, people might actually listen to your story if you didn't deliver it like an entitled brat. Harry's face turned crimson. "You don't get to talk to me like that." Kevin leaned back in his chair with an icy smile. "Apparently I do." And then the final blow. Kevin straightened his papers and said evenly, "One last thing. There are rumors, credible ones, that your marriage is already cracking under the pressure. Care to comment?" That was it. Harry froze for half a second, his face a mask of shock and fury. "You disgusting little man." Kevin continued undeterred. "Are you denying it?" Harry leaned in close, his voice so sharp it cut through the air. "You don't get to talk about my wife. Not one more word." Kevin held his ground. "I'll take that as a no comment." Harry suddenly slammed his palm onto the desk, the sound echoing through the studio. "That's it." He ripped his microphone off, threw it on the desk, and stood to leave. Kevin stayed seated, still calm. "Leaving already? Typical." Harry whipped around at the edge of the set. "You think this is journalism? You think this is some noble crusade? This isn't journalism. This is arrogance, and you can keep it." And just like that, Prince Harry strode out of the studio for the second and final time, his steps echoing in the stunned silence. Kevin watched him go, shook his head slightly, and finally turned to the camera with that faint knowing smirk. "Well," he said, "that went about as expected." He shuffled his papers, looked straight into the lens, and added, "We'll be right back." The audience erupted into nervous applause as the screen faded to black. When the cameras came back from commercial, the set was eerily quiet. Kevin O'Sullivan sat alone at the desk now, his pen still in his hand, idly spinning between his fingers. The audience, unsure whether to clap or sit in silence, waited to see what would happen next. And then, astonishingly, Prince Harry reappeared once more. He stormed back into the studio, his face flushed with barely suppressed rage, his jacket now unbuttoned as though he'd nearly torn it off backstage. He didn't sit. He stood just to the side of Kevin's desk, towering over the seated journalist. Kevin glanced up calmly. Couldn't resist one last word. Harry leaned down toward the microphone, his voice icy, but loud enough to fill the studio. "One last thing, Kevin. You think you've won something here? You haven't won a damn thing. You've just proven exactly why people like me don't trust people like you." Kevin tilted his head, still cool as ice. "Is that so?" Harry's voice cracked just slightly with fury. "You sit here throwing stones from your little perch, pretending to care about the truth when all you really care about is ratings. You twist every word I say. You sneer at everything I've been through, and then you have the audacity to pretend this is some kind of a noble profession." Kevin's lips curved upward just a hair. "Go on." Harry jabbed a finger toward Kevin. "You want to talk about hypocrisy? Look in the mirror, mate. Because what you do isn't journalism. It's theater. It's cruelty dressed up as accountability. And frankly, it's beneath me. It's beneath all of us." The audience was completely silent now. Even the camera operators looked frozen. Kevin folded his hands, eyes locked on Harry. "So, what would you call it then?" Harry straightened, his breathing heavy, his tone final. "I'd call it custaholic, plain and simple. What you do isn't about the truth. It's about tearing people down to feel powerful." For the first time that evening, Kevin's expression hardened. The smile slipped just slightly from his face, but he held his tongue. Harry shook his head, disgusted, and ripped off the backup microphone someone had hastily clipped to his lapel when he returned. He threw it down onto the desk with a sharp clatter. "I'm done here," he said. "You wanted a show? You got it, but you'll never get my respect." And with that, he turned on his heel and marched toward the exit. Kevin watched him go, then looked out at the audience, his voice calm but edged with steel. "Ladies and gentlemen, Prince Harry, a man who demands the world's respect, but refuses to give it in return." The prince froze at the door for just a moment. He turned back one last time, his glare cutting through the bright studio lights. "And you," he called out, his voice low and clear, "will never understand what it costs to actually live what you sit here mocking. Not until it happens to you." Without waiting for a response, Harry pushed the door open and disappeared from view, the echo of it slamming shut, reverberating through the stunned silence. Kevin sat back in his chair, exhaled slowly, and smirked faintly again. "Well," he said to the camera, straightening his notes. "That was spirited. We'll be back after the break." The audience burst into awkward, scattered applause, some unsure if it was appropriate, others clapping just to break the tension. As the credits rolled and the studio lights dimmed, everyone knew they'd just witnessed something unforgettable. A collision of ego, pain, and principle that would be replayed on screens and argued about on social media for weeks to come. And somewhere backstage, Prince Harry, still fuming, muttered one last time to himself before leaving the building entirely. What he does isn't journalism. It's just plain arrogance. What did you think about this explosive showdown between Prince Harry and Kevin O'Sullivan? Was Kevin crossing the line with his relentless questions, or was Harry simply unwilling to face the heat? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and we'd love to hear your take on this unforgettable interview. And don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe for us for more jaw-dropping celebrity confrontations, and turn on notifications so you never miss a moment when the drama unfolds live. We'll see you in the next.